Okay guys, welcome to my biology lesson. And if you're new to this channel guys, you're most welcome. On this channel I teach mathematics, biology and the science, and also revise past examination questions. Alright, so if you're new to this channel, you are most welcome, and you must be relaxed and also enjoy the lesson. So in today's lesson we'll be looking at cell structure and the function part 1. So when I say part 1, it means that there are other parts that I've already covered. Introduction to biology itself is already covered. Characteristics of living things already covered. Now we are looking at the second topic, which talks about the cell structure and function, and I'm calling it part 1 because this is the beginning. All right. Excuse me. So in this section, to begin the lesson guys, we have to define first of all what a cell is. So guys, a cell is a basic functional structural unit of a living thing. All right, so this is what a cell is, and you should also know that all living organisms consists of cells. All living things that you know, animals, plants, both consists of cells. All right, and what we mean by the term functional structural unit of a living thing, we mean that a cell is able to carry out the function that it's supposed to carry out internally and independently. All right, so again, what you should know is that the cells are too small to be seen by the naked eye. So when studying plant cell, animal cell, we study them using an instrument called the microscope. All right, so from here now we are going to look at types of cells. All right, so basically there are two types of cells or classes of cells, namely animal cells and the plant cells. All right, so these are the classes of cells that we know. So now, from plant cell and animal cell, we are now going to look at animal cell. So we are going to look at an example of an animal cell, how it looks when observed under an electronic microscope. So this is how an animal cell looks like when observed under an electronic microscope, and these are the internal parts of the cell that we are going to label and know at a later stage very soon. Also, we are also going to look at how a plant cell also looks like when observed under an electronic microscope. So this is how a plant cell also looks like when observed under an electronic microscope with its internal parts as shown here. Now from here guys, we are now going to look at the detailed structure of an animal cell. All right, so let's look at the detailed structure of an animal cell. And when we say detailed structure of an animal cell, we mean that we have to look at the structure of an animal cell and the parts of the animal cell that you are supposed to observe when you view this cell under a microscope. So this is how a cell would look, an animal cell would look when observed under an electronic microscope and drawn on a piece of paper. It will look like this, and these are the parts of this animal cell. All right, so it has got a lot of parts here, and some of them you are already familiar with them from grade 8 integrated science. So we'll begin by naming those parts that you're already familiar with. So like the first layer here that encloses, so this layer that encloses the cell here, or the cytoplasm, is called the cell membrane. All right, it's called the cell membrane. This is from grade 8 integrated science, nothing new. Then this part which controls all the activities of the cell, it is called the nucleus. All right, then this inside area here where you find these organelles or parts of the cell represented by this arrow, this area here, it's called the cytoplasm. All right, then these two small pockets here are called the vacuole. All right, then we have this part here containing these smaller particles. It is called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. Then this part here is called the Golgi apparatus or Golgi body. Then this part here is called the lysosome. Then also this part here, this part here, this one here, these two small parts, these ones here, these ones, smaller particles here, these smaller particles here, they're called ribosomes. All right, then this part here is called the centrosome. Then this part itself, this one here, is called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. All right, then this part here is called the mitochondria, chondrion. All right, then the inside of the nucleus here is called nucleolus or nucleolus, like that. All right, so basically this is how a detailed structure of an animal cell would look like, and these are the common parts that you would observe. All right, at your level we end here. We will not go deeper than this because that will be too much of you. So let's also look at the detailed structure of an animal cell. All right, I mean a plant cell. All right, so this is how a plant cell also looks like, and as I said earlier on, you are already familiar with it from grade 8 integrated science. So these are the parts of an animal, I mean plant cells. So the parts that you are already familiar with the plant cell from grade 8 integrated science is this part here called the cell wall, and also you are familiar with the second layer inside there called the cell membrane. All right, so this part here is called the cell membrane, and also you are familiar with this space here in the center of the cell, which is called the large central vacuole. All right, then you are also familiar with this part which controls all the activities of the cell called the nucleus, and you are also familiar with this space here, where you find these organelles called the cytoplasm. All right, and you are also familiar with these parts here called the chloroplasts, and you are also familiar with this part here called the Golgi. This part now is what you learn at this level. So this part is called the Golgi apparatus or the Golgi body. So this part here, you are not yet familiar with it. Then this part here is called the mitochondria, and this part here is called the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, and this part here is called the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and then this part here, these two small particles which are also found on the rough endoplasmic reticulum are called free ribosomes. So these are free ribosomes, but the ribosomes are also found on the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and that's what makes this endoplasmic reticulum to be rough. All right, so as we continue looking at our cell and then know all the parts of the cell, then this inside part of the cell, as usual, it is called the nucleolus. So this is the nucleolus. Then this part here is called the tonoplast. All right, the tonoplast. Then this part called here, these two small particles again here, they're called visco. All right, so basically this is how a detailed structure of a plant cell would look like. So let's dive a bit and look at the functions of each part of the cell we have looked at already. So we are going to start with the functions of parts of cells, and we'll begin with the cell wall. And you should know that a cell wall is only found in in a plant cell and not in an animal cell. All right, so basically this is a plant cell once again, and the cell wall is this first layer of the cell. And usually the cell wall, usually it is non-living and fully permeable. So this cell wall is non-living. It means it is a dead substance of the cell of a plant. So it is found at the outside of the cell. It is non-living and it is fully permeable, meaning it is able to allow all materials that would enter or pass through it in going through inside or outside of it. It's fully permeable. The word permeable meaning penetratable. It can allow substances to penetrate through it, those that are in solution form. All right, so and the function of it is to protect the cell from injury and give it its shape. All right, so that's the function. It protects the inside of the cell and also give the cell the shape. And usually these cells of plants are hard, and that's why you see a plant standing, because of the cell wall that really supports the cell to remain strong. All right, so from here now, let's look at the cell membrane, all right, or also known as the cell surface membrane. All right, so for a plant cell, the cell membrane is the second layer after the cell wall. All right, and for an animal cell, it is the first layer of the cell. This layer here is what we call the cell membrane or the cell surface membrane. All right, so the cell membrane or plasma, it is also called plasma membrane, is a partially permeable membrane surrounding the cytoplasm of the cell. All right, so when we say it is a partially permeable membrane, it means that it is not fully permeable as the cell wall. That means it is selective. It doesn't allow substances in solution, all of them, to pass through it, but it is selective. It allows some substances to pass through it, while it stops other substances from passing through it. And it is that membrane which surrounds the cytoplasm of the cell, and its function is to control substances entering and also leaving the cell. That is its function, to control substances entering and leaving the cell. All right, so from here now we are going to look at the vacuole. All right, so for a plant cell, the vacuole, as already stated, is this space here. All right, so this is the vacuole represented by this arrow here. And for an animal cell, the vacuole is this small part here, some of these pockets here, which are so these are this is the vacuole. They are similar to those one we called the lysosomes. So they are similar to lysosomes also. So these are vacuoles. So now, cell vacuole is a small fluid-filled space bound by a membrane. So a small fluid-filled space. So it's a small fluid-filled space, a small space which is filled with some fluid, and around it, it is bound or enclosed by a membrane. So that's what basically a vacuole is, and its function. And the function of the vacuole in animal cell is to store water and food substances. That's the function basically of the vacuole in animal cell, that is to store water and food substances. And in a plant cell, the function of the vacuole is to store a solution called cell sap. All right, it is to store a solution called cell sap, and cell sap is mainly made up of water with dissolved amino acid and some mineral salts. That's what basically the vacuole does. All right, so from here, guys, we are going to move to chloroplasts, and also chloroplasts, just like the cell wall, is only found in plant cell. All right, so the chloroplast is this part here. This part here of the cell, of the plant cell, is what we call the chloroplast. All right, so chloroplast is an oval membrane bound organelles filled with chlorophyll. So it is oval in shape as you saw, and it is bound by a membrane around it, and it contains inside of it a substance called chlorophyll. And its function, and the function of the chloroplast, is it offers a site where photosynthesis takes place. And you know photosynthesis from grade 8 or grade 9 integrated science, that photosynthesis is the process by which plants manufacture their own food from water and carbon dioxide in the presence of light and the chlorophyll. So this chlorophyll, which is a green pigment as it is said, which helps a plant to trap light energy, which is needed for the reaction that converts carbon dioxide and water into carbohydrate or glucose, then and some oxygen and some energy, some kind. All right, so that's why we are saying that the function, the chloroplast functions as a site for photosynthesis in plants. So in plants, when a plant is undergoing photosynthesis, the place, the site where that photosynthesis is occurring from, is a place called the chloroplast. Then from here we will talk about the cytoplasm. All right, so for a cytoplasm, it is also found in both plants, plant cells, and also animal cells. So the cytoplasm, as already indicated, it's this area here where you find these other parts of the cell. All right, so also for the plant cell, it is this surface here, which was represented by this arrow or line here. All right, so the chloroplasts or the cytoplasm is the gel-like matrix embedded with organelles. So when we say a cytoplasm is the gel-like matrix embedded with the organelles, so there's this letter gel-like matrix. So it's like gel, you know, it's like liquid, like solid substance. So it is in between the liquid and the solid. So we call it gel-like matrix, embedded or containing organelles or other parts of the cell, as already indicated to you. And its function, or it functions as the site of most cellular activities, or in other words, all cell activities occurs in this area called the cytoplasm. All right, so this is why we said it functions as the site of most cellular activities. All right, so next now we are going to look at the nucleus. All right, and the nucleus in a plant cell is this part here, and also a nucleus in an animal cell, it is this part here represented by this arrow here. All right, and you should understand that the nucleus is an organelle surrounded by an envelope called the nuclear envelope, and you should also know that its function is to control cellular activities such as growth, repair, and cell division. That's the function of the cell wall. Then another function is that it also functions as a storage of genetic information on threads of DNA called chromosomes. So it stores genetic information on threads of DNA called chromosomes. All right, so from the nucleus, now we are going to talk about the Golgi apparatus. And then the Golgi apparatus for the plant cell, as usual, it is these parts here that we named as Golgi apparatus, and also for an animal cell, it is this part here which are Golgi apparatus. All right. So we also know that the Golgi apparatus resembles a stack of flattened disc-shaped spaces surrounded by membranes. That's what the Golgi body looks like, a flattened disc. All right. So these are like discs that have been flattened, pushed, a stack of them stuck together, all right, and flattened together, all right, and then surrounded by membrane. So yeah, so that's what the Golgi body is by description, and that's how it looks. And the function of the Golgi apparatus is to store, sort, modify, and transport substances made by endoplasmic reticulum from the site of production to the site of reaction. That's the function, all right? So to sort, to store, sort, modify, and transport substance made by the E stands for endoplasmic, R stands for reticulum. So when it sorts, it stores, it modifies, then those substances that have been made by the then it carries out another function of transporting them to the site of reactions. All right, like we said, in the cytoplasm, there are sites of reaction there. So there are other parts of the cell that catalyzes certain reaction, and they need substances such as proteins. So the function of the Golgi body is to make sure that it is transporting these substances from the site of production to the site of reaction, or where they are needed. So in other ways, they act as vehicles in the cell. All right, so now let us look at now the next one, which is the endoplasmic reticulum, all right, so for a plant cell, we know that the endoplasmic reticulum are in two. We have this one, or the rough and also the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Also in animal cell, also we have this one, the rough endoplasmic reticulum, and this one also the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So the endoplasmic reticulum is a network of membranes forming tubes and flattened spaces. All right, so that's what the endoplasmic reticulum is. So it is a network of membrane. So it is a network of membrane, which means that the membrane themselves, they fold themselves in a way that they form like a rod, all right, a network. A rod, they connect each other. When they connect each other, they form like a connection throughout. All right, so and then those become like tubes, flattened tubes. So and then we should know that there are two types of endoplasmic reticulum, namely we have the smooth endoplasmic reticulum and also the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And also the function of the rough endoplasmic reticulum, which contains the ribosome on its surface, is to transport what? Proteins. So the rough endoplasmic reticulum, this one here, contains ribosomes on its surface, and those ribosomes that it contains on its surface are what causes it to be called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. All right, so its function is to do what? It's to transport proteins, because it's also a network, as already stated. And then we have also the function of the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, which means the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, it doesn't have these ribosomes on its surface here. All right, so its function is to transport lipids or fats made in the cell. All right, so the next part we are going to talk about is the mitochondria. So the mitochondria in a plant cell is this part here, and also in an animal cell, it is this part here, these parts here that are similar. So these are called the mitochondrion. So mitochondria. So the mitochondria, singular, it is called the mitochondrion, are small elongated organelles with folded inner membrane. So elongated organelles or parts of the cell with folded inner membrane. So it has the inner membrane, it is folded. All right, so this is why we are able to see it like this. So inside the membranes are folded. All right, so um um yeah, so the mitochondria function as a site for aerobic respiration. So it is a site for aerobic respiration. Maybe what is aerobic respiration? So aerobic respiration is simply a process by which energy is extracted from food. All right. So so the process of production of energy in a plant or in a plant cell or an animal cell happens in a part called the mitochondria. So for this reason, the mitochondria is also called the powerhouse. All right. So for this reason, mitochondria are called the powerhouse. So the next part we are going to look at is the ribosomes. All right. So for the cell, animal cell, I mean plant cell, the ribosomes, we said, are these small particles, and those also found on the endoplasmic reticulum, the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And for the animal cell, these are called the ribosomes. These small particles here are called the ribosomes. All right, so these are small round structures found freely in the cell cytoplasm or attached to the endoplasmic reticulum or the rough endoplasmic reticulum. All right, so the function of ribosomes is to synthesize proteins. So these are the ones that synthesize proteins. So yeah, so that's what you should understand, guys. All right, so I feel like we have done a lot. We have done a lot so far. So if you are enjoying this video, please give it a like and also make a comment appreciating the video. You know what? It is going to help this video go a long way. All right, so thank you very much for watching up to this point, and I have now work for you. So before we go, I have work for you, and the work is here. Try this home. So it says the diagram below shows a typical animal cell as seen through an electronic or an electron microscope. So this is an animal cell. Then the question says name the structures labeled A to D. So you need to name this structure labeled A, this one B, this one C, this is C, then also D. All right, so please guys, remember to subscribe for more YouTube. All right, so guys, at this point I would say bye and please peace.